with short notice, and we are having to spend money, and we could get a useful bakra for our sacrifice. And hope all of you will enjoy the interaction. He will be, now he is actually visiting fellow department at the Center for Advanced Studies. He is starting the program for us this year. It should have happened in July rather than end of semester. Whatever it is, we have begun with a aggressive note. We hope to have more such visiting fellows in the next few months till March end. So, Mr. Gupta, my class. This is a very lively class. I will not praise my student before my teacher. So he will be speaking on Marx period of transition, and I hope you will enjoy the interaction with the students. And we will have 15 minutes break around 12. Okay. So we will resume class at 12:15. So I welcome Mr. Gupta to address us.
Thank you, sir. It's a pleasure to be here in your university and to speak under your chairmanship. Good morning, Adab, Namaskar. I'm going to talk about Marx and Revolutions. But before I do that, there is a small personal experience I would like to narrate here. And before I do that, all questions have to be noted down, and at the end of the session, I will club questions according to the subject and answer them so that there is less repetition and less waste of time. Is that acceptable to you all? Yes. But if you are itching too much to ask a question, you can satisfy your itch. Okay? Is that fine? But I will decide whether you are itching or not. Like you all, I was also a student, and I'm talking of 1967 and 1968. I passed my BA in 67 and in 69 my MA. And in our course there was political theory, and there we were supposed to read Marx, also in our MA, second year. In these 3 years, in fact 4 or 5 years, we had a 10-minute lecture on Marx, out of which 9 minutes were spent on Hegel and Isaiah Berlin, and 1 minute or less than a minute was spent on Karl Marx. And in that 1 minute, only one sentence was spoken, and the sentence was, "Marx is dead." You are lucky going through the university educational system in this country to learn about somebody who wanted to remove exploitation and restore humanity to the human being by a person who is well versed in his discipline, expert on Gramsci, has read through philosophy, much more Karl Marx. Without now following the prefatory remarks, I'll come straight to the topic. I'll make an initial sentence to which I'll come back at the end, because that is going to be the theme of my talk today. Marx talked about revolutions which are qualitative transformations. I am not writing this. If you want, I'll write it. Okay. Please remind me of that sentence, because I may forget it since I don't have notes. I'm speaking from memory. We live in a modern age, competitive, struggling, possibly failed. It is the competition and the failure that creates in each one of us individually, collectively, in small groups, a small sentence. ये क्या हो रहा है? What's happening? I'm going to talk about this faculty of ये क्या हो रहा है? What's happening? And arrive at some understanding, inshallah. And my take is that the human mind, because the human being is a laboring animal, all of us have an animal in us. Not only just Nar Nari Nataraj, we have an animal in us. Our anger, our ego, our self-centeredness, our selfishness, they all are forms of that animal in us. To come properly to what I want to say is that Foucault who criticized the kind of Marxism we do and the kind of liberalism that the Western world does, said that liberalism has three basic qualities. And these three basic qualities are, if there's anyone who doesn't hear me, you will ask me, because if I'm here, the loudspeaker is not there. This is what he said about liberalism. And he regards liberalism as a movement of enlightenment. Karl Koch, I'll stop referring to intellectuals very soon. I can't quote either, I don't remember what. So I will not. Karl Koch. He also said that Marxism has these three qualities. So what I'm saying is that Marxism is also a philosophy of enlightenment. I'm not going to refer to the Indian scene at all, because one is tempted to do so, but not in Western philosophy. If this is clear, I want to spend a very little time on these 2 or 3 words. Criticality. Criticality is the capacity of the mind to differentiate between the other and the self. Differentiate. This is purely in dictionary terms. In terms of physics, it is the movement of matter through fission. not fusion. And reaches a point when it becomes critical. That is, when fission becomes critical. And when it becomes critical, it gives you a chain reaction. And that is how you make your bombs and so on and so forth. So criticality would take you from what you thought you are not to a position where you think you are not or you were not. In other words, it's focusing on change, transformation from one area to another area. I will not go on into many other examples of it, because I will have to come back and sum this up very soon. Let's look at creativity. Creativity is an expression which did not exist among the Greeks. You may have read Plato, Aristotle, Socrates, and if you read them, you will not find the word in their books. Supposing somebody has come out with a new thing that they have developed, either in painting or in music or something, the word they used to use was maker, not creator. The word found currency in medieval times in medieval Europe, where creativity was linked with divine reality, because he became the luminous creator. If you look at your universe, you would find that there is the world of nature, the Brahmand, as they would call it. You may also know that there is the Brahma, that there is God, but there is also darkness, the dark hole. How do you understand it? So in medieval times, creativity was understood in terms of divine creation. And how divine it was? That it made us believe in blind faith. We only believed in God. The tribals, incidentally in India and abroad and in Greece, they had totems to believe in. Totems. Totems are symbols. It could be a fox, it could be a lion, it could be a plant, it could be a tree, it could be moon, it could be sun, and you every morning do namaskar. Why? Because you thought that they gave you life. So polytheism is linked with symbols. Very ancient, primitive, beyond, just after primitive stage of man. That was your superstition. And then there comes along religion which gives you divine creation. To be knocked off in the 18th century, nobody talked of creation after 18th century, friends. Why? Because Charles Darwin came. You heard of him?
Yes, sir.
Have you read any book of his? No. I also did not when I was at your stage. I remember the first time I read it, I didn't understand it. It's only when I read Engels that I understood Darwin. because Engels was the follower of Charles Darwin's evolution, and I'm now going to introduce another Marxian theme, and that is, how does change come about in Darwin from evolution to revolution? For example, you see a particular species developing from algae to fish, from a single cell to a multi-cell, then from the fish to the land animal, the semi-land animal, and then the land animal coming up to mammal. But when does man come? What is this transformation? Darwin says my empiricism does not help me to tell you how does this change come about, and Marxism is able to do that. Marxism says it is a qualitative chain, it is a jump. The jump is like from fission to reaction. Fissionable material moving into a chain reaction. Jump. You cannot understand Marxism without understanding three principles of dialectics of Marx. Hegel propounded them, but it is Marx who scienticized them. And that is quantity turning into quality, negation of the negation, and interconnection of and interpenetration of opposites. I'm coming, I'm writing them. Interconnection, interpenetration of opposites. These three laws of dialectics, propounded by Hegel, scienticized by Engels and Marx, tell us how change takes place in human life, in social life, in human psyche, in human brain, in the species, in economy, in social sciences, and name whatever you may, including the structure of revolution of Kuhn. You may not have heard of it, or you may have heard of it. You may be using another term, paradigm and paradigm shift. So the paradigm and the paradigm shift, you cannot understand when it reaches the new stage unless you understand that the paradigm shift has come about as a result of small developments performing qualitative action. Am I clear? If I'm clear, then these three words, which are simple, are not so simple. Because when Karl Marx wrote his PhD, I did, you did, sir, he wrote it on Epicurus. And for me, my hero of ancient Greek thought was Epicurus, because he was the first Enlightenment philosopher of ancient Greece, not Stoics, not Plato, and not Aristotle. He came after that. And what did he do? He went back to pre-Socratic thought to understand nature, and to Socratic ethics to understand society. So if you read Marx, and he's very lyrical about Epicurus. You know how to write Epicurus? Epicurus. So for me,
there is a bar in Mandalpura named after Epicurus.
well, I can also mention a drink. Because bar has many meanings, so also drinks. Otherwise you will say, why are you spoiling them? It's your class. Well, friends, to cut it short, the change, that's the third word. What do we mean change? When this man who is staring at me ever since I'm standing here starts saying, what are you doing? I'm saying, why are you talking? He's saying, what are you doing? And I'm saying, what are you talking? We are the two of us. What are we doing? What are we doing? Since you're smiling. I thought you understood.
Deliberate.
Going for change through thesis and antithesis.
And so, quarrel. But if the 10 of you get up and say, what the hell are you doing? And the 10 of us get up and say, what the hell are you doing? What is it? Right. So the difference between a quarrel and a riot comes about as a result of the quantitative changes which have taken place, which have led to qualitative changes. You put water over steam, over fire, and unless it goes up to a particular critical point, it will not turn into steam. And if it will not turn into steam, you will not have an industrial revolution on which liberalism is based. And if the working class does not understand the change as a result of the locomotive in the society by creating inequality and non-freedom in its consciousness, that change has to come about, which is qualitative, to tell the worker that let us unite and fight for the revolution. Only then will you understand change. So there is fission. Fission leading to chain reaction. So a single manufactory person who is working in one small room and 100 people working in a manufactory, 100 people will have greater power, quantity. You live by O2, don't you? But if you have O3, you are dead. One, difference of one. One. And if you don't have the ozone layer, you have marrow cancer. With oxygen you survive. Therefore, friends, the second point I want to make in this discussion is that Marxism brings about a drastic transformation in the consciousness of man. And that is the change. But Immanuel Kant, we have both read Immanuel Kant, he more than I have. I was not fond of Kant. Frankly, I also couldn't understand him very much. But I liked only one of his remarks, and that is on sublimity. On that later. Another day, if he allows me to talk informally with you. Immanuel Kant said criticality means using one's reason. Now let us look at reason. What is reason? Have you done all of them? Okay. To cut my argument short, your professor would have told you the difference between reason and emotion. Love has no emotion. Property has no emotion. I mean, love has no reason and property has no emotion. Yeah? So you break your family's bone, you disobey your father, but when you establish your family, you don't want your children to do the same. Because now property is the question. Therefore, friends, Foucault is right in saying that enlightenment was critical, creative and change because it fought against feudalism. Marx is right in saying it is criticality, creativity and change because it fought against the meta-narrative of liberalism and the modern capitalist society. But there is a difference between the two of them. Both of them belong to the same school of thought. I don't agree with. They belong to Frankfurt school of thought, who don't believe that Marx was interested in revolutions. Frankfurt school. I'm not dropping names, I'm just giving you the context. Frankfurt school of thought, sorry? Yeah, what of them? Sorry?
What of them are different from school? From and Marx.
Both of them are?
In the Frankfurt school of thought.
Both of them are what? Let me say. Frankfurt school of thought you want to know?
Yeah.
That's what I'm telling you.
Marx and Hugo are the part of
No. I'll tell you. No and yes. Western Marxists, yes sir. I'll give you more claps to laugh. Western Marxists who did not believe in making a revolution thought that Marx was not interested in making revolution, he was only interested in human freedom. So if he was interested in human freedom, the technical word used is that Marxism is philosophical anthropology. That is Frankfurt school. So you will have a young Marx. I don't want to trouble you with that. Jawan hai, so if he is young, then he will write poetry, which he did, but bad poetry according to the commentators. He wrote it for his wife when he was not married to her. Mao also wrote poetry. Nakshals write poetry when they look at the moon in the night. How do you know they don't do it today? During the day. Only the definition of the moon will change. If you're living in the old city, go and see how many boys and girls stand on the roof playing, flying kites. Anyway, the joke is missed. Coming back. The Frankfurt school divested Marx of his real issue. Yes, he was interested in the problem of alienation. And it's a serious, very loaded problem. I don't want to bore you with that. It will take away days and days to understand alienation. But in order to remove alienation, he was interested in exploitation as well, for which he gave us the theory of revolution. You have to be clear about it. The Frankfurt school does not want a revolution, it wants Karl Popper's falsification theory. Deny, 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 deny with logic. So you say Marx is a totalitarian. Karl Popper, Open Society and Its Enemies, the book at least I read on Plato and Marx when I was in BA. So friends, if we move out of this introduction of mine to say that Marxian criticality and creativity and change were different, change. Let's look at change. You look at social science, you look at economy. Adam Smith and Ricardo talked about classical political economy in Britain. Marx did not talk about surplus labor at all. That was at Ricardo, the change that he made. And in American universities, everybody in the university had a chair for a Ricardo. They patronized him. Marx believed in surplus value. And surplus value meant that capitalism survives on the basis of the exploitation of the working class, for which he gave the idea of abstract labor. I don't have the time at the moment, but I'll come back to this if I can. So he is not a person who can be straight-jacketed into traditional social scientists' economy. It is a revolution in social sciences, Marxism. Revolution. Psyche, we are all very friendly people and say, "Arey bhai, inshallah, sab dost hain, ban jao dost." Any rich man, have you seen him? With his hat, with his pipe, with his stick. Big tummy. He's very smiling, he's looking at you like this. And doing what? Trying to judge you how much of work you can do. And the same man, if you go on strike and he loses 1 rupee, he's staring at you, how dare you? Because the moment he loses his profit, he's going to run at your throat. Same man. So the psychological change that comes about in the bourgeois when he loses profit has to be understood, and you cannot understand it without Marx. Or with experience. But that's not enough. So the worker will say, "This fellow is troubling me, let me go beat him," he gives him a slap. Or runs away. I'll run away. Tell 10 people, let's run away. Spartacus League, Spartacus, silver mines of Greece, ran away. That was the first form of class struggle. Oh, the class struggle came to me, telling me to shut up. So here is a man, Spartacus, who's standing and trying to understand this bourgeois and discovers this the damn machinery in which I work for 18 hours a day. It is my enemy. Please read Capital 1. Last part of Capital 1 is primitive accumulation, a little earlier, and you will see Karl Marx praising science and technology because of the revolution it creates in the society. The worker who did not understand why his condition is pitiable attacked machines. And that worker in England was called Luddite. Luddites, first form of working class movement in the world. But it is unscientific. What has machine done? Change the power system, social relations, change the contradiction, and machine will serve you. So Marx said, this is all right, but let us move forward and realize that without us the capitalist cannot survive, because he will not be able to make money. You know what surplus value is? You do or you don't? Raise your hands, those who don't. So you all know? Kind of, okay. Then I won't trouble. Go on strike. So general strike became the first weapon of the working class, to go on strike. And the working class realized, oh wonderful, I'm going on strike because instead of 18 hours I should work for 14 hours. Chartist movement in England went on strike first to say that the British Parliament should give pay to the MPs because the capitalist was bribing people to fight elections for Parliament. I'm talking of 17th century. I'm not talking of post-1950 India. I'm talking of England, the great capitalist country. So the liberal rights that you have got, the labor laws that you have got, the power of speech that you have got, apart from the biological factor, which Engels does in a very small, beautiful text called Labor in the Transition from Ape to Man. Read that text if you can. You will understand what it means, speech, biologically speaking. So he told them to unite and struggle. Labor in the transition of ape to man. Very small text, but illuminating. The mind becomes free of many cobwebs of history, of family, of society. So, change was for Marx in everything, qualitative change, transformation. Marxism, therefore, I began by saying, is a theory of qualitative transformation based on the principles of quantity changing into quality, negation of the negation, and interconnection and interpenetration of the opposites. Clear? Which means have an economic struggle, have a political struggle. When the working class of Bombay textile workers went on strike because Tilak was arrested by the British, Lenin said that the Indian working class has come of age because it is not engaging to get bonus, it is engaging for a political fight and the ideological fight that India is suffering from today or conducting to begin to conduct, if at all. All these three tasks have to be understood so that the worker is able to bring about the change that he wants to bring about. So you don't need palmistry. You don't have to go to a palmist to show your hand, you know. He said, your future is in your own hands. That consciousness must come. Those of you who are Marxists here, some of you are approvingly moving your neck for me. Thank you. The transformation from a class in itself to a class for itself will take place only if you understand Marx. Until that time, even if the situation is revolutionary, revolution will not take place. So working class has to be, I'm saying this because my major part of the subject is still to start. Sorry, I think I'm getting a little late. I wanted to talk with you after this brief introduction, not brief, otherwise somebody can say, during the class that brief, huh? I don't mind brief either, it's okay. This is my brief preface to what I want to tell you, and where my friends who know Marxism will start disagreeing with me. Marx had, to my mind, 4 different approaches to revolution. And this is what I intend to do today. That was my topic for today. This was only the preface to it. And now I am going to talk about those 4. But before I do that, friends, if you want to understand Marx, understand dialectics, It's a must. Without dialectics, you cannot understand even Hegel. Forget Marx. You cannot come out of Kant. Because then you will be in transcendental epistemology. Okay, my facts are showing this, but beyond that, I think God is correct. You will say that. So when you are sitting at home as a scientist, you will put your teacup and then go and produce atom bomb. But you will not produce an instrument that will bring about peace and prosperity to the teeming masses who have produced those means which you are using to produce an atom bomb. So, my humble submission is, Marx was not a Marxist. Without quotes, so don't, my apologies to Indian Marxists, whoever they are. He said he was not a Marxist, he was very open, and that is why after Marx, every leader made a contribution to Marxism. It is not a dogma. I haven't read too much about him, written by him, but a little bit. Gramsci wouldn't have made a contribution if Marxism was not an open system. Not Mao, not Lenin, not Ho Chi Minh, not Che, not Fidel, nobody. Nobody at all. So it's not Christianity or Judaism. I read the last article of the last issue of Problems of Communism after the collapse of socialism. And in that article, it was written that Marxism is nothing else but the ideology of the Jew. It's a system which has to be built rigorously. So don't say I will only practice and not read. Please read. Then practice. So these four, I want to first deal, and these four are related to his exiles, period of exiles. Yes, he wrote poetry for his very rich girlfriend who became his wife. But he did not have money for the coffin of his infant son, because he lived in exile most of the time. He never found a job in a university like I found. Never. Nobody would give him a job. He wanted to write articles in New York Tribune. Thankfully for him, his compatriot, his collaborator, his friend in need, and an equally giant mind, Friedrich Engels. I love him as much as I love Karl Marx. Marxists don't love Friedrich Engels. It is because of him that he was able to write in the New York Tribune, New York Herald, while in exile, because he had no money. No money. Ran from pillar to post, German, father Christian, and had to run because of the political struggle. So I'm going to talk about Germany, one of the approaches that he adopted on the basis of his experience of Germany of 19th century. You know the history of revolutions. English Revolution, 17th century. American War of Independence, which century?
18th century.
French Revolution?
18th century.
Bismarck, 19th century. So 1848 is middle of the 19th century, where the bourgeois liberal democratic revolution in Germany had not taken place. Bismarck had taken place, which was a combination of feudalism and capitalism, because the capitalist class in Germany was not strong. In France, the capitalist class was not strong, so it kept making alliances with feudalism, with workers, with peasants, and produced 4 republics. Yes? Different experiments in democratic theorization. In such a country, Marx thought that he must participate in the democratic revolution. What was that revolution about? Democracy, not socialism. Not socialism at all. He went to Cologne and participated actually in the democratic revolution of Cologne. And because orders were issued against him, he had to run away from his own country again. So this entire example of suggesting that a democratic revolution is necessary for a Marx and for socialists. I'm not calling him a Marxist for a very simple reason, friends. And you have many of you who I have not come to convert. I'm not interested in converting you. I'm only interested in sharpening your criticality. He wrote again a very small text. Sir, I never read big texts. I always read small texts. On suicide. How many of you know that he wrote on suicide? Anyone? Do you know? No. You know that Emily Durkheim wrote on suicide?
Yes.
You all know. Wow. But that is liberal, bourgeois, sociology, and not Marxism. Alienation and integration, according to Emily Durkheim, cause suicide. But my problem with Emily Durkheim is that you may slap me today, you may slap me tomorrow, you may slap me the 3rd day, every day I feel miserable, and on the 4th day you slap me again. And then I commit a suicide. Now what has happened to my mind? Emily Durkheim has no answer to that question. No psychologist has any answer to that question. But Marx told us that the cause of suicide is social. But what I wanted to tell you about that book is that how did he reach this opinion? He reached this opinion by reading the diary of an ex-police officer who used to register in the police station in France cases of suicide all his life. And he published that diary after he retired. So he had nothing to gain from any government. And nobody would have published it easily. And then he said, if you read this diary, you will find that French social criticism is much better than Marxist social criticism. I want to make that point. Absolutely. I'm not saying all non-Marxist criticism is better. But what I am saying is it is possible to find goodness in others. Take it. He took dialectics from Hegel, damn it. Turned it head over heels. Turned it back. Made it scientific, but he borrowed. He borrowed political economy, made it Marxist. He borrowed democratic revolution to say that there will be continuous revolution, that one day democratic revolution would lead to socialist revolution in Germany. So that's one view of his, where a democratic revolution has to be defended. Lenin, 2 tactics of social democracy. and his attitude to 1905 revolution, his attitude to Mahatma Gandhi, his attitude to M.N. Roy, all of them suggest that a democratic revolution is an absolute must. My Marxist friends today, sitting in this room, I have no legitimacy to talk to anyone else and talk about anyone else. How many of us are prepared to pick up the flag for the democratic revolution? Don't tell me freedom of speech. It's there in the Constitution. It's there in the Constitution. Freedom of speech is there in the Constitution. It still doesn't give me freedom. I'll just give you a very quick example and move on. I'll give them a break. Just give me this example. And the other three I will do quickly so that you don't get impatient. What did I say? Huh? Democratic revolution. I've forgotten what I was saying. Freedom of speech. Freedom of speech is given to us in this country. And friends, you look inside yourselves from the point, those of you who are Marxists especially, who believe in criticism and self-criticism. How many of you would give that freedom to the women in your own household? 90% of traditional women in their households have the freedom to speak but don't speak. Media only makes wonderful noises. Wonderful noises that some women are talking. And who are these women? Middle class. You know what happens to the poor women? We are against drugs. In Kerala, long ago, the developing societies of that economist, I've forgotten his name, K.N. Raj, he conducted a study of the women there and came to the conclusion that the women had to go and help their husbands with the children on their back, and they used to give them a small dose of opium so that he can sleep and they can work. Sir, that is the role of a woman in a patriarchal family. And you don't have the heart to give her the freedom to freely say, because you will say, father hai, mother hai, family ka kya hoga? Damn it, let her say what she wants to, don't agree with it. And I'm saying it on the basis of what women have told me in public, much older than you all are. And in a meeting like this, and in Bengal, Marxists, I used to go there when this little TMC leader was not there. He says, I must give you a break, so the break is there. I'm sorry, I'm late by 10 minutes, so you can come back here at 12:25. So you have to give me another 40 minutes. I continue.
Yes, sir. So if you do not need a break.
I don't. My longest lecture was 5 hours. At that time I was in my 30s. I'm 70 years old now. But I don't mind. So no, I'm not talking of freedom of speech. I'm not talking of beef and pig. I'm scared to death. I'm suffocated, but I'm not talking of that. As a Marxist, you have to understand the implication of a political struggle which a democratic movement will cause. It is not easy. People will die, slaughtered, burnt. So join them. Because if the democratic revolution collapses, after having come about, you may say, damn semi-feudal revolution, damn semi-imperialist revolution, damn anything, damn colonial revolution, yes. You may say that. But the fact of the matter is that you yourselves cannot raise your voice anymore. You can return your decorations, you don't speak. That's a form of protest. But organize a new consciousness. People of this country, I don't see anyone doing it. Nobody. So Marx was right that if you have to bring about revolution, you cannot avoid the democratic revolution. And then it moves on to continuous revolution. The question of continuous revolution, please note down if you have questions, because continuous revolution developed a lot of problems later on in the hands of others in writings. Lenin also used it into tactics. But from 1905 to 1917 October, he had to face a lot of problems because of this word continuous revolution, and Mao used it very constantly. Continuous revolution, but he did it differently in the context of bureaucratization of China, cultural revolution. So that's take one on revolutions. Take two. He was exiled in Paris, where he lived for a very short while, not very long ago. There is a book of his writings in Paris. Most of us are familiar with his writings while he was in exile on Germany. But very few of us are familiar with his writings while he was in exile in Paris. And his articles on French politics, before I go into his basic thought, I don't want to be prosaic and pedestrian, neither poetic. He will say, how can you talk poetry in a Marxism revolution lecture? Yes, I'm not supposed to talk, so I will now. No, he didn't tell me, it's very sweet. His writings gives us the concept of classes and class struggle in Paris. The word classes and class struggle existed in two French non-Marxist historians. Guizot was one I remember, G-U-I-Z-O-T. What he did was, he linked up the idea of classes and class struggle with socialism. Those of you who are Marxists must be thinking that this is boring terrain. Same. 3 sources and 3 tenets of Marxism by Lenin would tell you the significance of scientific socialism, surplus value and historical materials. So he linked class struggle to socialism, not to democracy only. But to me, I'm not a theorist. My PhD was on a very mundane topic of peasantry in Bihar. His writing on the peasant question in France is interesting to me. The text that he wrote on Bonaparte, and there he discusses the role of the peasantry. My dear friends, I am challenging anyone here who say that Marx never talked about the peasantry. He did. He wanted to understand French dictatorship because France politically did not have civil liberties, so no democratic revolution. The revolution that it had was republicanism. The people that he talked about were bourgeois. So when he talks about France, he talks about a country where no political freedom is given. So the idea of class struggle is inherent there, and there he talks of the peasantry. Apart from critique of the Gotha program about Germany. And there he says that behind Bonapartism, which is dictatorship in simple words, there is the support of the peasant class, French peasant class, which wants a hero. After writing this, the next paragraph to me is more important, where he says that under different circumstances, the same peasantry will become revolutionary. This idea appears in both texts, Gotha program, as well as in Bonaparte. So for him in France, revolution was possible only through an armed struggle. And friends, he was not doctrinaire, he was not dogmatic about his position. Because he had a problem with a colleague of his in the Communist International. How Communist International was formed, I don't have to bother you about that. Bakunin. Bakunin was his colleague in the General Council of the First International, which is the Communist International. And Bakunin staged the Paris Commune. That is armed insurrection of the workers of Paris. And Karl Marx never agreed with that insurrection. He said this is not the time for insurrection. He criticized Bakunin. He defeated him in the General Assembly. Bakunin became a minority and later on staged that Paris Commune. Having said it, then Marx goes on to say that I admire the role of the working class of Paris, because for the first time we came across what is going to be the nature of a socialist state if the workers bring a revolution. Commune as a concept of self-governance. Commune as a concept of self-governance is different from Parliament as a concept of governance. In the Parliament, you are delegated to legislate, but you do not execute. So you remain irresponsible. In the commune, the worker would legislate and execute both. So the idea of the Soviets comes from there. Much later in the Russian Revolution. Therefore, his writings on the French Revolution to me, or while he was in exile in France, is very significant. Because what I am going to talk about, the third one, is in total contrast. Total contrast. And the third one is when he was writing in England as an exile. All of you are familiar with his work. Das Kapital. Spectre of communism haunts Europe. Sir, is it a metaphor or a fact? I'm wondering, what was it then? When he quoted from that, it's a metaphor. And the entire Western bourgeoisie, the entire Western bourgeoisie was after him. A conspiracy of silence. nobody talked about Karl Marx. Our friend, dear Karl Marx, knew that England had civil liberties. There was a parliament. There was a Chartist movement. And he was trying to understand the cell of capitalism in the country which was the most advanced in capitalist terms. Capitalism in Europe came in Italy, Spain, Mediterranean European countries first, and it came later to the north. But it developed in the north more, and England was one place where it developed the most. That's why I said Adam Smith and Ricardo, political economy, classical political economy. So when incidentally, there used to be a book long back, I have not seen it, I don't go to PPH, they sell Adolf Hitler now. Students' edition of Karl Marx. It used to be a small book, meant for students to study. I don't know if it is there in any library or not. It's a brilliant book where they try to explain to you. Now look at the word cell of capitalism. That's how he begins that massive 3-volume work, Das Kapital. Where does he get that word cell? He gets it from Charles Darwin. Single cell, multicellular. That's what Charles Darwin's contribution is. Theory of evolution. But he is not an evolutionist. He is a revolutionist. So he transforms this understanding of the cell, of capital. And he finds main contradiction of capital the following. Nature of social production in conflict with individual appropriation of surplus. That's the contradiction he finds in the capital. Mark his words, sir. Individual appropriation of surplus. Social nature of production. Again, I am not going to explain this. Why am I insisting? He was not against private property. He does not say owners of property. He says appropriators of property. Appropriators of profit. You know what is a profit? I don't know if I did this in your class. Supposing I have ₹100 as a capitalist. I am going to spend it to produce, what shall I say, what shall I produce? Cloth, okay, textiles. We were textile industry at the freedom struggle stage. So you have a machine, you have a raw material, you have a manpower, and you have maintenance. 50 rupees, raw material 50 rupees, manpower 20 rupees, maintenance 30 rupees. It comes to, no, it comes to much more, 30. Does it come to the same? No, it still doesn't come to the same. 60, 20, 80. Then you have to bring this down. 20, 20, 40, 30. Okay, whichever combination you want. So I have spent 100 rupees. Produced a piece of cloth. Don't eat nails. Bad habit. It goes to the market. Sorry, I cannot explain to you each step in suggesting this. And it fetches you 120 rupees. The question is, if he has invested 100 rupees, how is he getting 120 rupees? That's the question. Where does this 20 rupees come from? Classical political economists will say, law of supply and demand will apply in the market. If I need it very badly, I will pay more. I have never seen anyone say I will pay more. I have always heard everybody say I will pay less, including the Marxists. Because Marxists are also into speculation these days. We are living in a world where we just can't survive. In Russia today, a teacher has to do 4 jobs to eat 1 sausage. That's the situation. So what do? Marx tells us here, I refer to that word purposely, that when a bourgeois looks at me, he looks at abstract labor. Now, what is this animal called abstract labor? Very simple. I wish you see some of those pictures of the Industrial Revolution and pre-Industrial Revolution, and the right to social contract is very important in liberal theory. I have the right to work for you, you have the right to give me money, both of us are very happy because both of us are free. What is this money given to you for? This man looks at you like a horse. So he examines you. I know how capitalism came in Russia and England. I don't know about other places. So he examines you. Now only Salman Khan does it. Or Ibrahim does it. John Ibrahim. And in Kapil's stupid show. In order to find out the capacity of the human body to perform. Capacity. To perform what? Labor.
The role of physical labor.
No. He just wants to know how much you will perform, how much you are capable of performing. And accordingly, he fixes your price. Now let us see what you have done. Your physical labor, since you are talking of it. What you have done is, you have spent certain hours on it. 14. Because trade union movement is saying, give us less working hours, 8 hours, 12 hours, and whatever, Chartist movement. How many days have you worked? 7. Marx says if you calculate these 2, you will realize that this 20 rupees is the actual value, which is the surplus value which you have produced as your labor. It has nothing to do with the law of supply and demand in the market. Therefore, give him back his due. So he's not saying individual property owner. He's saying individual appropriator of a product which has been produced jointly. So collect together and fight him. If he doesn't give, and here another problem comes. What do you do with revolution? How do you handle it? And that brings me to England again. I was telling you, England has civil liberties. It has a parliament, it has a Chartist movement. You also know it has a May. We don't anymore. I don't know if communist parties anymore celebrate May Day. And if they do, the newspapers at least don't report it. And once upon a time, it was a very important event for all of us. And for you all, I'm sure it still is. And we need to celebrate that because the blood of the workers came out as a result of that, of the struggle of the people. In England, he said, I am very sure that the English working class will make the revolution in England because it is the most advanced, most organized. Why? Because it is not under a manufactory system. It's not under a factory where 10 people are working, hundreds are working. So when hundreds will combine, strike would be stronger, political questions can be asked, you can organize yourself, and in the Communist League, William Schaper had gone to Marx to tell him to establish Communist League. He said, I am not going to do it without principles. I am not interested in your League of the Just. And he said, what is your principle? He said, my principle is democratic centralism. So it is Marx who gave the idea of democratic centralism, and Lenin takes it up in the party. That is why he brings about an organization on the basis of principle. Huge English working class. Very good trade union movement. And he expected that English working class to make a revolution. Through what? And now the worst.
Ballot vote.
Through the ballots, he said, I am a product of informal education of Marxism through the communist movement. So whenever we would go into the classroom as students, we would be told, what happened to Marx? He was wrong. England never had any revolution. So where is your ballot? And now the answer. He also found the English working class sleeping. Sleeping. When it was sleeping, he had, that is, revolutionary consciousness was not there. Trade union consciousness was there. My last, as a young man, participation in a political movement was of the agricultural workers of India. I haven't come across in the last 15 years any political movement of the workers asking for change, political change. Partially they may have been. I'm not saying working classes don't work. I'm not saying others don't work. They all work. But the position is this, that if I am not sure that the working class is going to deliver goods, because the trade movement in India today has been sold, white collar worker has gone, the new collar worker whom you call the middle class, BPOs. Please come to Gurgaon in India, in Delhi, NCR region. I'll tell you the lifestyle they have, the way they live. It's all modern, consumerist. But it is not the CEO who is thrown out. It is in huge numbers that the lower sections of the working class goes out. And nobody reports. Nobody organizes. No trade union. Now if this is the situation, then what is the way out? And here I want to bring in a supplement because it is relevant to the argument. Then we started looking at the national liberation movements of the world. He looked at Ireland, he looked at Poland, he looked at India. When he looked at Ireland, he said Ireland gets potatoes from England. And then he looked at China, incidentally. Potatoes. And what is the basis of colonialism? Falling rate of profit. If you can't get profit in your own country, go out in another country, sell it off, you will get more profit. Because labor there and market there will give you profit. Raw material will be cheap. So he said, if you stop this return to England from China and Poland and Ireland, maybe the working class will get into consciousness. Similarly about India, that if the 1857 revolt, which is the first independence revolt, takes place, then maybe the English working class revolutionary consciousness will ignite. That's what he said. So he tried out possible routes for revolution in England. How? Not through revolution. Ballot. And friends, now I am going to answer my earlier critics that the first Labour Party government which came to power after the Second World War was on the basis of ballots, working class party. But unfortunately, the Labour Party had been sold out. So his prediction that a change in favor of working class will come through the ballot happened. But after the working class was under a party, and that takes us to a different question of the party system. So the ballot, his British experience showed, is equally relevant. And today, sir, just because we are living in this day and we talk of democracy about India, I personally think that you should make a difference between electoralism and democracy. Usually, once upon a time, I used to give the example of Zia-ul Haq and Zia-ul Rahman of Pakistan and Bangladesh. They used to hold elections, but not democracy. Junaid was the first prime minister in Pakistan under his elections. And Junaid was a Sufi. He was not an Islamist. He was a Sindhi, he was not a Punjabi. So he made a compromise even there. So if you are interested in bringing about a change in the consciousness of the working class, given your own conditions, which is very important, specifics, social specifics. Last, and I'm going to, there's one more I'll do, but before that I'll do this. There was a debate between Rosa Luxemburg and Lenin on the nationality question, with reference to Poland. Of course, there's a lot said about, I remember your review, about Marx and his anti-Magyar position about national liberation question. Magyar is the Hungarian tribes. They thought they were unhistoric. But he defended the national liberation movement. On the nationality question, I would like to suggest that Lenin and Rosa Luxemburg disagreed on principle. Rosa Luxemburg said that if you are not going to talk about Poland in the war, First World War, you must talk about it, otherwise this is not done, I am not with it. Lenin said no. Poland is part of the imperialist conspiracy. And number two, which is more significant from my point of view, and that is that Russia is a prison house of nationalities. His Russia. More than 50% of the Russians were non-Russian. Therefore, if you want revolution, you will have to give them freedom. So he was creatively, almost like an artist, a musician, a symphony writer, a practitioner of politics, a man of letters, a pathfinder, whatever you may call. not a totalitarian, and he didn't hate women, he didn't hate his wife. Hello, hello, don't sleep. Right in front of me, damn it, I will feel sleepy. Have some water. You're looking very nice. Come on, wake up. Oh, all of you are looking very nice. Okay. Or if all of you are sleeping. So he said, yes, I must give independence to my right of self-determination to my nationalities in Russia. Because Imperial Russia is a prison house of nations, and you cannot have revolution in Russia unless you have liberation of nationalities. Now here it is a totally different situation. That brings me to the last approach. 1 o'clock at the time? Okay. Last approach about revolutions. Brilliant mind that he was. He also talked about the possibility of revolution in Russia. And the text that I want you to read is his preface to the Communist Manifesto of the Russian edition. He said, that the commune in Russia, I've now forgotten the Russian word for it, which is like our panchayats, that the commune in Russia would be the basis of bringing socialism in Russia.
Gram Sabha.
Sorry?
Equivalent of Gram Sabha.
Gram Sabha. Local self-governing body at the village level. Imagine the creativity of the man, the mind which is responding to reality, the mind that analyzes reality, the mind who doesn't suffer from what he has written, the mind who is open to ideas, to experiences, to people, to societies. When he said that, it was unbelievable. Commune?